Hello to everyone at Degen. This is Degen YouTube, your source for useful information. I wish you all success in your investments and become rich. Continuing on from last week, we would like to share with you a summary of the week's Bitcoin news. We will summarize the Bitcoin market and its positive outlook and rationale, negative outlook and rationale, interesting information, Bitcoin mining, and even the Bitcoin ecosystem. Please read to the end as there is a lot of useful information to help predict the future direction of Bitcoin. In 1 week, Bitcoin rose about 11%. It was chaotic, perhaps from the March 4th spike, to the March 5th plunge, to the March 6th resumption of the rally. Now the market is hopeful that Bitcoin will reach $10 million. Will Bitcoin really be able to reach $10 million without adjustment? Let's take a look at some Bitcoin market-related news. On Wednesday, March 6, the Coinbase will reach a record high in dollar terms. This is a meaningful breakthrough of all highs. As I mentioned earlier with the chart, after breaking through all the highs, the price dropped sharply and then rose again. There are positive reactions to this adjustment, such as it has happened in the past. It is a positive signal, and there is solid support at $60,000. Supported by trading volume, the price rose despite the sharp drop, reaching a new high and breaking through to $70,000. The founder of Capriole Investment, an investment firm specializing in crypto assets, says he has escaped the undervaluation section. He says it is not undervalued right now. They think that now is the right price. Thinking about it a little more, if we have passed the undervaluation section, then we can say that the buying factor has decreased. And, as you will see in the back, the volatility story continues. We have to be careful because there may be repeated sharp rises and falls. Bitcoin ETF trading volume and inflows remain good. The end of February and the beginning of March show further increases in transaction and inflow volumes. Most Bitcoin ETFs have a lot of inflows, but GBTC, which we reported on last week, has a lot of outflows due to its peculiarities. Bitcoin spot ETFs cannot be traded in South Korea. It's so much easier to buy foreign stocks and ETFs. They will make this a public issue by the second half of this year. And recently, a Bitcoin spot ETF has emerged and is often compared to gold. Some predict that it will overtake gold ETFs as early as this summer, and some predict that BTC ETFs will surpass $300 billion in assets under management in 25 years. This is good news for Bitcoin, since an increase in spot ETF inflows means an increase in actual Bitcoin purchases as well. The U.S. House of Representatives in Arizona has passed a concurrent resolution that includes both major pension funds investing in Bitcoin ETFs. Since it is not signed by the governor, it is not legally enforceable, but both large pension funds are required to research and report on the expected effects of including a spot Bitcoin ETF in their portfolios. If the report is positive, there could be a large influx of new money, namely pension funds. A representative of CryptoQuant says that the average daily reserve-type purchase of 6,800 bitcoins is an unprecedented level. This is the power of institutional investors. This is the result created by the Bitcoin spot ETF. And as I mentioned earlier, we continue to see it overtake gold ETFs. Just recently, the cumulative inflows of Bitcoin spot ETFs have exceeded the inflows of gold ETFs over the past 5 years, and there is talk of significant demand for Bitcoin spot ETFs. There has been some movement toward approval of options trading for spot Bitcoin ETFs, including Grayscale. Some believe that the continued problem of Grayscale GBTC outflows will slow down. The US SEC has postponed approval of BlackRock's BTC Cash ETF option to April 24. The news of this option approval is also important for Bitcoin, so it would be good to remember the schedule well. BlackRock is serious about Bitcoin. Other funds under their umbrella are also planning to buy spot L Bitcoin ETFs. How far will Bitcoin's rise, which began with these Bitcoin spot ETFs, continue? We will need to keep a close eye on the Bitcoin spot ETF as it begins to experience a net outflow of funds. Let's take a look at those who speak of a positive outlook for Bitcoin and their rationale. Bitwise's CIO says Bitcoin could be $100,000 to $200,000 or even more by 2024. The rationale is that the supply of Bitcoin to be mined is limited while demand is high due to the entry of institutional investors. I had predicted a new high at the end of this year in Grayscale's February monthly report, but it has already reached a new high. Ha ha ha. Bank of America's chief investment strategist said it is not surprising to see gold and Bitcoin prices rise while talking about the U.S. national debt. Standard Chart executives predict that the market will surpass $200,000 by the end of 2025, and $100,000 by 2024. The rationale is based on the decrease in supply due to the half-life and the possibility of a Fed rate cut. Incidentally, $100,000 is about 132 million yen. $200,000 is 264 million won. Some physics professors have said that Bitcoin could reach $10 million in 2045. Applying the power law Bitcoin analysis model says it does. Since it is so late in the game, it seems that we have to pass it off as being so. The power law model is a functional relationship between two numbers where one number is expressed as a power of another number and is said to be applied mainly in physics. And I know some analysts who talk about Bitcoin's annual rate of return being higher than most investment assets. MACD, a CryptoQuant contributor, has seen an increase in short-term holders on the basis of UTXO bands. He said the price of Bitcoin could go up to $120,000, although there could be a 20% to 30% adjustment in the short term. Another CryptoQuant contributor, Degen, said that the market has entered a bullish zone and will remain in this zone for about 6 months to a year. I said on 10x Research on the 4th that we could hit a new high this week, and we actually did. I feel like 10x Research's outlook has been right on the money lately. Tether's co-founder expects Bitcoin to reach $300,000 in the next bull market. I too am wondering when the next bull market will be. I wish I could be more specific. An analyst named Willy Woo predicts that we are in a warm-up phase and will rise further based on the blue dot on the Bitcoin macro index. Interesting rationale. The founder of Morgan Creek said that when Bitcoin hits new highs in a bull market cycle, the price tends to more than double. The rationale is still the demand for Bitcoin spot ETFs and the decrease in supply during the half-life of the Bitcoin ETF. The co-founder of Chainlink also said that this is the start of a bull cycle. Goldilocks' sister Cashwood said Bitcoin will hit $1.5 million by 2027. The co-founder of Spartan Capital said the price would not drop below $4,200 when the adjustment comes. Galaxy Digital's CEO will speak $100,000 this year, and analyst Timothy Peterson will also speak $100,000. Tommy speaks of $150,000. With the increase in call option outstanding commitments, the Hashnote founder says $80,000 will go. A negative outlook is to watch out for Bitcoin investment from China, which may result in less buying or selling on the Chinese side. And he said that all indicators such as the current futures funding rate, 3M basis, and open futures and options contracts are overheating the market and that we need to watch for short-term adjustments. Analyst Benjamin Coe also stated that an adjustment of more than 50% could occur, testing $30,000. Peter Schiff, who always looks at Bitcoin in a bad light, said that the Bitcoin that flourished in the Bitcoin spot ETF will be ruined by the Bitcoin spot ETF. I've talked a little about this before, but I also talk about the moment when a buy turns into a sell. As I will discuss later, I personally am putting out new demand in the Bitcoin ecosystem, so I don't think it is as much as Peter Schiff talked about. Analysts at Betlanday also stated that based on open contracts and funding ratios, long positions will begin to liquidate and the bubble will disappear. Various interesting news items are also summarized. Withdrawals from exchanges on March 1st were the largest in 5 years. Going from exchanges to private wallets is a good sign with a decrease in the sell factor. Some of you mentioned the half-life, increased asset transfers in personal wallets, and increased Google search volume as 3 important points to look at as a bull market. Last week, a custodian told us that the surge in crude oil was causing a shortage of OTC balances, but the CEO of CryptoQuant countered that there was plenty of liquidity. More and more experts are talking about the sell liquidity crisis, such as the representative of Zhu Qiyang CryptoQuant. CoinShares has released a report on the impact of the half-life on Bitcoin prices, and while there is an impact, it is not immediate. They say that interest increases in the short term, but the effect quickly dissipates. They say it will advance in a parabolic pattern, followed by a brutal adjustment. He also said that he does not recommend predicting cycles. Michael Saylor, co-founder of Cameo MicroStrategy, says that now is the time for a Bitcoin gold rush. And they are promoting a $700 million convertible bond issue for the purpose of purchasing additional Bitcoins. Big Hand has declared that it will buy Bitcoin, which is a good thing for Bitcoin. Although unaffiliated, Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to use Bitcoin to get votes in the election. I understand that you actually purchased Bitcoins. While talking about a liquidity crisis in selling, one can also talk about the prospect that the rise will slow down. Even the CME Group, as I mentioned earlier, is talking about the half-life, the macroeconomic downturn, and the surge in national debt that caused Bitcoin to soar. MicroStrategy's shares rose along with the rise in Bitcoin. The British government has seen the price of Bitcoins seized by criminals skyrocket, increasing the value they have. I was personally surprised to learn that Stanford University, a prestigious American university, has an endowment management fund that allocates 7% of its portfolio to Bitcoin. In addition, I understand that you are also purchasing additional Bitcoin spot ETFs. The derivative Bitcoin Volatility Index continues to be a hot topic. On the 5th, Bitcoin overtook the market capitalization of silver. It has now completely overtaken it. As I mentioned earlier, gold and Bitcoin have been rising higher together due to rising US debt. There is also the prospect of further increases at the time of the interest rate cut. Some sad news. A user who had been holding Bitcoin for a long time deposited Sichuan Bitcoin in 2 days to lock in a profit. I am wondering if this investor's choice really worked out. I wonder if they are not greedy because they have already made a lot of money. Bitcoin whales are showing a series of buybacks. I hear that some ants sell when they see that it has gone up some. Billionaire Mark Cuban says he prefers Bitcoin to gold. Hotel booking platform Traveler has launched a Bitcoin cashback program to drive customer influx. Although it has not been determined if this is true or not, Arkham has been in the news for mentioning that Tesla and SpaceX have huge amounts of Bitcoin. JP Morgan says Bitcoin has already overtaken gold in investors' portfolios despite the volatility risk. Theoretically, he said, there is room for Bitcoin to rise 153% to meet the value of gold. He also stated that an important factor, risk, has been ruled out. Voya, a publicly traded company in Hong Kong, has asked shareholders to approve a $100 million purchase of crypto assets. It will be good news if more and more companies try to hold Bitcoin. A JP Morgan strategist has issued a forecast that interest rate cuts will be delayed because of the Bitcoin bubble. It seems plausible that the bubble could shrink and interest rates could be cut, as there has been talk of Bitcoin prices rising when interest rates are lowered. The Bitcoin ecosystem is getting bigger and bigger. Former Kraken exec says Bitcoin Layer 2 will drive Bitcoin to new highs. Investments have also been made in the Bitcoin-based DeFi project, which has increased the trading volume and price of Bitcoin-based NFTs in increments. You actually need Bitcoins to buy these NFTs, which increases your Bitcoin purchases. And if the Bitcoin Layer 2 is activated, it is good for Bitcoin because the associated increase in transaction fees will buy Bitcoin. However, since it is still early in the market, problems can arise, as in the case of the ODZK lag pool. The project must be analyzed carefully. The stacks that were recently shown in the video are also growing, with validators being added. There are also various other attempts at bridges, staking, and wallets in the Bitcoin ecosystem. If such an ecosystem produces good results, it could have a positive impact on Bitcoin. Related projects and coins are also a recent trend and should be looked at with interest. While we continue to see the prospect of a reduced supply in Bitcoin's half-life, the reality is that the mining industry is in fact a tough place to be. Although they say that revenues have increased, the story goes on to say that if they cannot maintain efficiency and profitability, they will likely be eliminated. There is also the significant issue of likely US government regulation of electricity. Some, like Bitdeer, have launched their own mining chips and are generating good sales while improving efficiency and profitability. However, this is not always the case, and in many cases, mining sites are sold or operations are discontinued due to declining mining volumes. Thus, when miners suffer, Bitcoin is more likely to be sold. Now it is institutional demand that will withstand this selling. Essentially, miners try to hold Bitcoin without selling it. The fact that these are being sold is not a good indicator and will need to be watched around the half-life. Regulations regarding mining in the US are also a concern. That news may also affect prices. I did my best to put this together. Was it helpful? If you found it useful, please subscribe and like us. If you found it useful. Tomorrow we will also upload a video summarizing news related to Ethereum, so set your alarms to continue to see useful news. I believe that keeping all investment possibilities open and combining them with a variety of information will increase the probability of success. I hope you study hard and become a successful investor yourself. Don't let your investments stress you out. Take care of your health as well as your exercise. Thank you for watching.